New digital technologies are driving a step change in enterprise business transformation. At the Digital Twin Podcast, we explore the intersection of technology and business. What should your digital twin look like?
Episode 3, Customer Experience and Digital Transformation. Welcome. You're on the podcast here with Hari and Omar, going live. How's it going, Hari?
Pretty good, pretty good. Yourself?
Oh, man, let me tell you. It's been a very interesting few weeks, right, to say the least. But, we were talking earlier a little bit about, digital transformation and all the great things that can happen with, transforming your business. But do we really focus on what the customer experience should be or needs to be, or what are some of the things that customers expect, right? I guess we're looking at expectations and how they experience that through you know by some of the nice use cases and great transformational projects that are out there. I mean, that's one thing that I think most people don't really talk about too much. I mean, what do you think?
Right.
I mean, do you think people
Yeah.
have a disconnect with?
Yeah, it's a topic that we wanted to talk about when we initially introduced the topic of digital transformation. And I think maybe it's important to kind of put a little bit of context around it, right? When companies enter into a digital transformation initiative, they have a number of choices. Where do you focus, right? You have to prioritize. You can invest in operations, operational excellence. You can invest in customer experience. You can invest in a new business model altogether. So a number of choices you have because you got to prioritize, right? You have a certain amount of resources that you can invest in. So a lot of folks out there, a lot of organizations, enterprises have to make that decision on where to invest first and where is it going to be the most amount of returns. And so the fundamental question that we are trying to answer here really is, and that's about what is truly the value of changing the customer experience for a business? Is that where the value is? How does that compare to maybe doing something else, improving your operations?
Yeah, you hit something very interesting there that I like. It's because everybody sees what was potentially possible, how to transform their operations or business, but you know, how do people what we're really asking is to change the way they do things, right? In a very simple
Mhm.
way.
Yeah.
We're asking them to change the way that you do things from today to, from X to Y. And what is Y supposed to be? And tell me all the great things and how I should feel about it along this way, the journey from X to Y, which is, if you just think about big, even before digital transformation, sometimes I think even back to traditional enterprise software implementations, big, initiatives around enterprise software, very similar experiences with people spending, millions and millions of dollars trying to change the way they normally do things. And sometimes they get there and sometimes they don't. But the one thing that is true is they leave away with that experience that it's, maybe it wasn't worth it, maybe it was. What do I take away from it? I'll never do it again. You could kind of, this is the reality that we somewhat have to deal with.
You have to go through that process to learn, right? And
Yeah.
it's a learning experience you have to endure. But from a customer experience standpoint, do you feel that organizations are investing enough? So one of the things that we talked about is, having seen the enterprises and how enterprise digital transformation takes place and how, the consumer or customer transformations take place in the consumer space, right? You see a lot of parallels in that you see the driver for a lot of transformation begins with that user experience, the experience with the product, and Apple is a great example. They changed how people interacted with their products. And so you could draw parallels to the enterprises, right? how do you change that user or customer experience? Now we have a number of tools and technologies that allow you to get intimate with your customer, get the feedback, um, have a multi-channel experience, whether you're on a website, on your Facebook, on a mobile app, or in a store, or on Amazon, eBay. I mean, you're interacting with your customers in multitudes of ways. And do you have a central 360-degree view of your customers? And do you understand your customers intimate enough that you can predict what they want and then adapt your offerings accordingly, right?
So this is
Right?
this is very interesting. Let me ask you this. You know, you hit a very interesting piece there of understanding the user experience or even the customer experience through this process. Do you think that when we say this is where you are and this is where you want to be is the right approach? Or do you say, or do you think saying, having a vision of where this might go, not exactly how it's going to finish, but this is where it's going to go, we'll start this way and figure out what really sticks and what's adopted? Is this approach, as you mentioned with Apple? I mean, they try a lot of these different things, but some things
Mm-hmm.
work, some things don't, and the ones that do, they're wildfires, right? Is that
Yeah.
some of the similar? In, if you take that same analogy and put it into the industrial world, industrial IoT, industrial experiences, do they have the patience to go through these trials, these POCs, these pilots, without really seeing how this is going to really play out?
Yeah,
How
I think
long?
we do. Yeah, that's a good question because I think we touched on this on a previous episode, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, you know, some industries, and whether it's industrial or a different one, right? Some industries are probably not well tuned to having to go through the trials and tribulations of technology experimentation, right?
So is that the new
Because
norm of a customer? The experience, is that part of the experience that how they experience these projects changes over time? They have higher expectations, quicker result. I mean, is that all part of the ethos now?
I believe, I mean, that's a good question. It's probably much broader than
Yeah.
that, but again, my thought process around that is a customer, the data drives who your customer is, understanding that customer, their preferences, their needs, their feedback. All of that is much easier to collect, analyze, and then predict, for an enterprise, right? And then use that data to then change your offerings. But that was in the world before, right? The world before was, I'm going to think through, maybe research, and then come sit, inside of your organization to come figure out the best product strategy and then launch it. And then obviously iterate through a longer process. Whereas now that has shortened, right? Because now the feedback is relatively quick, and the expectations of that user experience is at a much higher level, right? So I think there are some variations,
You know,
you know.
I just thought of something here. We talk about autonomous, 4.0s
Yeah.
and trying to close loops on all sorts of technologies. What you just explained there with the user experience is happening already in a closed loop environment,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
They're intimate with the product. The product managers or the product owners are seeing how they're interacting. They're getting that constant feedback on why they're
Yeah.
using it the way. So that loop is autonomous. It's closed,
Hmm.
which gives the engine or the modeling or the business or the whatever you're creating the foresight to drive down the path of where they see the customers will start to really adapt and have a greater user experience, as you mentioned. I mean,
Yeah.
so that's part of the whole ethos of what we're looking at. But on the industrial side, if you think about, we're from the B2C to kind of the B2B and the industrial.
Mhm.
It's a very unique, I would say there's a gap there. It's not an easy jump, would you say? Do you think it's a
The underlying concepts are still the same.
they
Just while
are?
you were saying, I was thinking about something. Like, for example, today the consumer may want to know, how was my product sourced,
Mm,
right? Is it sourced from the right places? Where was it made? How was it made? What products, chemicals went into the manufacturing of, let's say, a shampoo or a soap, and it was it ethically done, right? So there may be questions that a customer may want to answer, and maybe that is information that organizations are providing today, and we know that that's possible today, right? But if you take that example, direct to consumer example, to an enterprise, today we have technologies like blockchain that allows you to
hmm
authenticate, whether an airline part is original or if it's not, right? And track it exactly to where it was manufactured, what place, what city, what part of the world. So
So
again,
are
to
you
me, that's customer experience.
so are you saying that there's throughout the life of this data and the experiences and the data that's available, you can have your organizations or your team use the data in a way to go find a story that makes sense that they might be doing that they might not even know they're doing, and use that to enhance their brand and their awareness because they have just a little bit more insight on where things are coming from, how they're being produced, and what they're doing good for the environment or the community around them. The sustainability, everything like that. I mean, they can make general statements, but can they actually prove it and actually go down the lineage of the data and the chain to
Exactly.
see what's really happening? And if they find out that it's not, how do they change their ways?
Right.
Right? I mean, that's a very powerful thing. I mean, I just, to me, as you were mentioning that, it just brought into my mind, the whole, you know, closing that loop that's already there, that's being developed, and in the
Yeah.
industrial side, that's one of the ways that you're looking at from maybe from a blockchain technology point of view is a way to kind of have that autonomous control loop where somebody can actually see what's being done throughout the supply chain, right? So, but with that, I think the user experience through the journey of the digital transformation, if you think about from what it means to digitally transform to where they're going to get to, you know, in my view, and what I'm seeing is expectations may be set a little too lofty in the beginning for a lot of different, use cases. I mean, just different transformational projects, right? And how to set expectations and create a better user experience for some of these customers so that they can continue on these journeys to continue to, you know, show wins. I think we hit back on it in a couple segments of short-term wins with tangible value versus intangible long-term value that might be gained or not gained, or seen, right? So it's a multitude of things, but at the end of the day, the customer has to believe it, and they have to
Yeah.
see it, and they have to live themselves. They have to be able to see themselves in that new experience that we're basically outline with the transformational process. And I think it's not an easy thing to do, right?
It's
Bridging
not.
that gap. But there's a few people out there that might be doing it well. I mean, we have a few candidates up that might be showcasing here in the next few months, showing us some real insights on what they're doing. When we bring them on board, we can't give you the names yet, but it's in the pipeline coming. So, that's one thing. That's one thing that I think is it's going to be here to stay. Without that, understanding where they're going and envisioning themselves in there and having that
Yeah.
experience. I mean, it's one thing to say to experience it at that point, but the journey from where they are to get there, you know, is it gonna take? It's like driving to your favorite destination in a straight line that takes you 5 hours. You know how long it's gonna take you? Is it gonna take me 5 hours? Is it gonna take me 50 hours to get to that destination? And does that overall affect
Change.
the experience
Yeah,
that they're going through, right? So
absolutely.
that's it's a challenge for sure. I mean, what do you if let's say this, if if you were a client trying to transform your business, would you be short term or long term focused in general? If you had the latitude, if the business will allow you maybe 3 to 5 years to kind of show some interesting things. I mean, how would you like that experience to look like for you? I mean, if you were a customer, if you just hypothetical, what would you like?
Yeah. Well, sometimes that's not even a choice, right? You're driven by your shareholders and the investor community to be driving these transformation at a certain pace, or the expectations are driven by them. So, there could be other factors, but you're right. I believe in what Amazon believes in, and that is a true customer obsession, and then thinking in long term, and then think about the operational excellence part of it. That's, I think, three of four of their key tenets, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about how they even came into existence, that's just thinking from the customer onwards. What's their customer's experience should be? Whether it's availability of whatever they want, whenever they want, wherever they want, at a pace that is, challenging to even an organization like Amazon. And they're constantly challenging themselves to deliver faster and faster, right? And so that thinking from the customer outwards, I mean, that's sometimes, like you said, it has to be long-term thinking. It sometimes is not the least expensive route to take.
Mm.
But as you see in many of the enterprise examples, and you and I have talked about it a lot, it does ultimately result in significant value that you cannot really easily generate by improving your internal processes, or or improving your operational elements, right? And that's why there is that focus, because it fundamentally also uh, focuses on your business, your core of your business, right? You're challenging yourself because you're serving your customers, and you're challenging your own business by serving your customer in new and different ways. That prevents another person from coming in and going to that customer and challenging you by offering a better service and better experience.
So basically, trying to hold on to your customer base with enhanced experiences so that they don't leave your nest,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
I mean,
and personalization, and we I think we briefly touched on it. I mean, that's one of the elements of the digital transformation, right? It's, as we have more and more data, and sometimes customers are willingly wanting to give you that data, right? I want to be welcomed or greeted by my name. Maybe that is what I need as a consumer or as a customer, and then basically understanding my needs and preferences, and then you know helping me or advising me based on my own needs. So a good question is, are you okay with Google knowing your preferences, or are you saying, hey, I don't want Google or anybody knowing what I like and what I don't like, and so I don't want my Google home to tell me or call me by my name and tell me what I like, or you know so it's I don't know, what is your thoughts on that sort of personalization.
I think, you know, it's quite unique. It's a unique space that we're in because we see advances in technology and convenience, right? To your point, what is more convenient to you? What
Mhm.
makes life easier for me? You know, if you're gonna tell me I shave 10 minutes off of an ordinary task that I would normally do. That's 10 minutes that I get back that I could do with at whatever I want, right? Is that valuable to me? Time is a valuable thing. How can you give me more convenience, more information, more access now that I can actually do things in the pace that I want to live my life? Maybe that adds more things that I can do. Maybe that just makes me complete the things that I have to do and leave the rest for what I want, right? All that is to the individual. And within that, environment, we do give up a little bit of privacy and
there's a balance there.
there's a balance. So I think this is even today we're striking that balance. Sometimes I don't feel comfortable knowing that when I talk to somebody about baby wipes, on my Spotify, baby wipes comes up. So that really, an ad of baby wipes, it kind of, it's to me that it gives me pause.
Freaks people out.
It freaks me out. Like, what? How do they know I was talking about baby wipes? Even the particular brand. Okay, the same. I mean, what? So yes. So we're on the edge. We're on the wet edge of all that, and I think society will tell us exactly how far we want to go with that and how far or how much to push back. But I believe there's going to be somewhere in the middle. I think there'll be some unique things around privacy, how to autonomize the data, maybe not know who the data's from and stuff like that.
But customers need to have that choice, right? And now Google is starting to offer that options, and everybody else is, right? Whether I want to be or they want to save any of my past data or locations, I can choose to have it or not have it, right? And if I do have it, they can serve me better. So I'm making a personal choice whether or not that data needs to be someplace or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's going to come to a point where you and I make a determination if that data and the insight that this company is providing you, is that creating additional risk for us because they have too much data, right? And two, is there enough value they're providing me because they know more about me and they can help me better? So there is that balance again. At some point, it's gonna kind of even out.
It's the give and take. As long as the value's there, I will give.
Yep.
That's really what it is. But that's if we're talking about customer experience, that is, if we wrap this up in one phrase, as long as the value's there, I will give. It's a very simple thing. That means that the value must continue to adapt and continue to deliver value for me to pay. And it's
true with
really
everything.
It's a nutshell about customer experience, right?
And digital transformation.
And everything, yeah. You could say that too for anything. Yeah. But I'd like to thank everybody who joined. You can find this episode on Facebook, and be sure to visit us on Facebook, Twitter, or digitaltwinpodcast.com. And this is Hari and Omar signing out. And thanks for listening.
Thank you.